Ever get the feeling that the way we fund higher education is, well, a little off?
Off. How so?
Like we're so focused on getting students in the door and through the system,
Yeah.
but not really on what they actually learn along the way?
Yeah, that's a huge EE problem. It's something that comes up all the time when we talk about, like, reforming higher education.
Totally. It's a big one.
Yeah.
So we're diving deep into that today,
Awesome.
trying to figure out, like, why is this the way it is? And more importantly, what would a better model actually look like?
Okay.
One that's focused on student outcomes, on what you walk away with.
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
So to kick things off, let's lay out the problem. What's the central issue here?
I think the core problem is this disconnect between how we currently fund higher education and, as you said, the actual goal of learning.
Right, because the goal should be that students walk away with something.
Exactly. Like, you go to college, you spend all this time and money, you should be coming out with real skills, right?
Definitely, yeah.
But the way it's set up now, a lot of the funding is based on things like how many students enroll,
Oh, yeah, enrollment numbers.
attendance rates, graduation rates.
Metrics, yeah.
And these things, they kind of reduce both faculty and students to just numbers on a spreadsheet.
Right, like it's just churning people through.
It becomes a transaction. Like,
Yeah.
did you show up? Did you pay? Here's your degree.
Exactly, and not, did you learn anything? Are you able to apply that knowledge?
Right. It misses the point of education completely. And
Mhm.
it's not just about, like, abstract ideals either. This has real-world consequences.
Oh, totally. So let's talk about those consequences. What happens when we focus on the wrong things in higher ed?
Well, think about it from a student's perspective.
Okay, yeah.
You graduate with a degree, but maybe you lack the critical thinking skills to actually solve problems in your field.
That's a big one.
Or you struggle to communicate effectively with your colleagues or your clients.
Which is essential in almost any job.
Exactly. And that impacts your ability to succeed in your career, to contribute.
It devalues your degree in a way, too. If you have this piece of paper, but it's not actually backed up by, like, real-world competence.
Right. And then there's the impact on employers.
Oh, yeah, they're the ones hiring these grads.
They're looking for skilled, capable employees. But if the education system isn't producing that, they're left scrambling.
And it impacts society as a whole, right? Like, if we're not educating our workforce effectively.
Exactly. It's a ripple effect.
It's like giving someone a driver's license just because they sat through driver's ed, but they can't actually drive safely on the road.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And we can't ignore the equity issues here either.
Right, because not everyone starts from the same place.
Exactly. The current model can disproportionately hurt students from disadvantaged backgrounds.
Oh, absolutely. Like, imagine a first-generation college student.
Who's already facing so many barriers.
Exactly. They work hard, they complete a program,
Yeah.
but they don't gain the skills they need to actually break into their chosen field.
And the system has kind of failed them in that case.
Totally. It's like setting them up for disappointment almost.
It is. It's perpetuating inequalities. So how do we fix this?
Right, because it's a pretty big mess.
It is.
So what's the solution? What can we do differently?
Well, the source material you shared really highlights this idea of learning outcomes.
Okay, learning outcomes. That sounds promising, but what does that actually mean?
It's about shifting the focus to what students can do with their education.
Okay, so less about grades, more about skills.
Yeah. It's moving beyond those traditional metrics like grades, course completion, and really assessing. Have students developed these essential skills? Can they apply their knowledge in the real world?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So can you give me like a concrete example of how that might work?
Sure, let's say you're taking a coding course, right? Instead of just measuring how many students pass the class, you might look at how many of them can actually design and build a functioning app.
Oh, I see.
Or in a history course, maybe instead of a final exam, students demonstrate their learning by creating a historical documentary or analyzing primary sources.
So it's about showing what you can do with what you've learned, not just like regurgitating information on a test.
Exactly. And by tying funding to these demonstrable learning outcomes.
Yeah.
It incentivizes institutions to actually invest in quality teaching, support services, and creative approaches that really help students learn.
It makes them accountable in a way.
It does. It shifts the priority from just pushing students through to actually making sure they're learning and growing.
It's all about like ensuring that you as a student are equipped with those skills, knowledge, and critical thinking abilities you need, not just to land a job, but to actually thrive in a rapidly changing world.
Exactly. To be a lifelong learner, to contribute meaningfully to society.
I like that. It's about investing in your future and in the future of our world. So how do we actually make this happen? How do we measure those learning outcomes?
That's the million-dollar question, right? It's not easy. We have to move beyond those traditional measures like standardized tests, grades, and think more broadly.
Okay, so what kind of assessments are we talking about?
We're talking about projects, presentations, portfolios, maybe even simulations that mimic real-world scenarios.
Oh, that's interesting. Like put them in a situation where they have to USE what they've learned.
Exactly. But, and this is huge EE, these assessments need to be designed in a way that's fair and equitable.
Oh, definitely. Because as we said, not everyone starts at the same place.
Right. So we need to make sure that the assessments are accessible to all students and that they really reflect their mastery of those desired skills and knowledge.
And it's not just about the assessments themselves. It's about providing support along the way.
100%. Like ample support, resources, tutoring if needed, all those things that help students succeed.
And this is where both faculty and students have to be empowered.
Absolutely. Faculty need the resources and the freedom to design these innovative learning experiences. And students need to be active participants in shaping their own education, their own journey.
So it's a collaborative process.
It is. It's about creating a learning environment where students aren't just passively receiving information, but they're actively engaged. They're taking ownership of their learning.
Because ultimately, that's what leads to meaningful, lasting learning, right?
Exactly. When you're invested in your own learning, that's when it really sticks.
So tying this all back to the beginning, funding higher education based on what students actually learn.
Yeah,
It's not just a good idea, it's necessary.
it is. It's about fairness. It's about quality. It's about creating a future where higher education truly empowers individuals and strengthens communities.
It's about making sure you, the student, are prepared for whatever comes next.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty amazing thing to think about.
It is. It's a big shift, for sure. But it's a shift worth fighting for.
Totally agree. So for everyone listening out there, the key takeaway here is this. We need to start funding higher ed based on outcomes, not just inputs.
Exactly. It's about what students learn, not just how many of them show up.
And that's something we can all advocate for, right?
Absolutely. It starts with conversations like this, raising awareness, pushing for change.
Exactly. And it leaves us with a really important question, like, how can each of us, as individuals and as a society, contribute to making this shift happen?
That's the real challenge and the real opportunity.
I love that. Food for thought for sure. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the future of higher education.
It was a pleasure.
Always great to chat.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Until next time.
See you then.